Hi everyone, and welcome to our presentation on youth participatory culture and libraries. We wanted to start with defining and providing some context for the concept of participatory culture. Participatory culture is the idea that when individuals engage with media, they not only act as consumers, but also as contributors or producers of media and information themselves. And over the past 10 years, the shape of our media landscape has shifted dramatically. Recent advances in technology and also increasing access to technology has enabled new forms of expression and public discourse and has created informal communities that help individuals, especially young people, find meaning and identity. And research shows that young people utilize social media more than any other population. According to a recent Pew Research survey, 95% of teens report having access to a smartphone, and 45% claim that they use their phone on a near constant basis. And 2/3 of teens are content creators. And I think interestingly, teens of different racial and socioeconomic backgrounds tend to use the same platforms. The use of social media and technology really cuts across race and class lines. And Henry Jenkins, who's a professor of communication at USC, writes a lot about the potential of participatory culture to be a vehicle for creative expression, civic engagement, and connectedness. And he really broke down the major tenets of this culture that can help us better understand what makes a specific culture participatory. And Jenkins holds that participatory culture is one that has low barriers to artistic expression. So barriers like time and money are becoming less significant with the advent of new media technologies. For example, if you consider the idea of making a movie or a recording, camera equipment is incredibly expensive, which means that in the past, most people did not have the ability or the opportunity to create movies or videos themselves. And now almost anyone with a smartphone can participate in this process. Another tenet is strong support for creating and sharing one's creations. For example, the entire platform of YouTube, right? Like again, cultures and communities have always created these spaces. Participatory culture is not new, as Jenkins elucidates, but zines, so like for example, zines and punk culture in the 70s. But so the social media platforms make it possible to connect with basically anyone across the world now. And another tenet of participatory culture is informal mentorships. For example, young people often share this information, including expectations and norms for using a specific platform. And that information is often passed down either implicitly or explicitly to less experienced individuals. And finally, in order for a culture to be participatory, individuals who participate have to feel that their contributions matter, that through their participation, they feel some degree of connection with one another. And I think with an important quote that kind of elucidates this concept, that Jenkins explains that participatory culture really shifts the focus of literacy from individual expression to community involvement. And these tenets are really encapsulated well in this summer's In My Feelings challenge. So this past summer, Drake dropped an album, and one of the hit songs on it was called In My Feelings. And a social media personality and a comedian, his name is Shiggy, posted a video of himself dancing to In My Feelings on YouTube on June 30th. And within a couple of weeks, that the video was trending all across on Twitter and other social media platforms, and it became a hashtag In My Feelings challenge. And thousands of people, individuals across race and class lines, Drake fans began posting their own video renditions of the dance on Instagram and YouTube and Snapchat. And kind of, coming full circle, there are now like professional dancers who work for dance companies who are posting their dance tutorials on social media as a means of helping other people participate in the challenge. And also Drake, as my classmate Angelina just shared earlier, in Drake's new video for the song, because all these videos preceded his own video, he included some clips from the YouTube clips of people doing the In My Feelings challenge. So kind of coming back to Jenkins and his piece, Confronting the Challenges of Participatory Culture, he illustrates within the article that there are different forms of participatory culture, including affiliations, expressions, collaborative problem solving, and circulations. And what Jenkins is really interested in, within this article is thinking about how educators are helping prepare young people to navigate this new media landscape. So he really looks at the participation gap as part of kind of the digital divide, and how he sort of tackles how educators can work together to help young people access the skills and experiences they need to really be full participants in this culture. He thinks about like how educators can utilize media literacy curriculum, and sort of some of the skills that are found within participatory cultures to help young people shape their perceptions, think about being socialized into the emergent ethical standards of participatory culture, and become more literate in these new media literacies. So kind of moving forward, Angelina, Yessica, and Kyle are going to speak to kind of different aspects of participatory culture. Angelina is going to look at frameworks of participation in agencies or entities outside of the library. Yessica is going to discuss strategies for fostering participation in the library setting with teens. And Kyle is going to examine examples of successful application of participatory culture in libraries.
Participatory culture cultivates a space of belonging and one of ownership. It involves production, collaboration, and community. And when it comes to frameworks of participation in spaces outside the library, spaces can take a physical form or be omnipresent. Frameworks exist in the form of social media, within the walls of art museums, and in the confines of academic research. In these frameworks, contributions are encouraged and welcomed. In the article, Young Visitors Messing Around in Museums, Exploring Social Media to Engage Teens in Participation, authors Strudal and Smordal discuss the notion of taking the conversation of the museum outside the museum. As new media evolves, the relevancy of established cultural heritage spaces comes into constant question. In this case, the thesis inquired, could digital technologies and new media engage teens across museum and school spaces into collaborative activities through participation during museum visits? This experimental study focused on a group of 20 visitors aged 13 years old during a visit at the Viking Ship Museum in Oslo, Norway. And teens were given mobile phones during their visits to this museum, and they were encouraged to interact with the exhibits by taking photos. The researchers hoped that the teens' interactions would support their agenda of meaning-making in their visitors' experiences. Now, the results weren't quite what researchers had hoped for. The teens created videos which took a significant longer time to download, and the teens also seemed to be more interested in the task and their peers rather than the exhibits. Youth investment is key to ensuring the legacy of curation, that it remains far into the future. In the paper All Together Now, Teens and Museums by Gabrielle Wyrick, the issue of relevance is discussed. She inquires, what do art organizations give their communities that are truly valuable, truly important, and truly critical to the human experience? Museums are long-established centers for cultural exchange and engagement. But what happens when digital spaces begin to encroach upon the work? An example is a curated work of Instagram meme artists at Classical Fuck, whose take on classical art memes and individuals in society has gathered a following of 366K. The curator presents classical artworks of art from lesser-known artists over various art periods, and they then apply humorous and relatable sayings to each work, covering themes of dating, loneliness, insecurities, and friendships. And for example, a painting shows a woman in a pink gown gazing at her beauty in the mirror, her lips pressed to the glass. The heading of the meme reads, "When you finally find the person you're supposed to be with." Or the next photo, where a courtly musician leans in to inquire after a lady, "Hey baby, what's your sign?" And she cheekily responds, "Dollar." This humorous twist on the presentation of classical art creates a bridge between the elite world of art juxtaposed to humorous and witty contemporary situations. Wyrick sees youth as partners, doers, makers in the ongoing process of self-directed and self-selected inquiry. At Classical Fuck is one of many artistic curators of memes and artwork on Instagram appealing to and being produced by teens and young adults. Wyrick further reasons that what is being accomplished and shared in the digital world can and should be applied within the context of the museum. Now, in the case of YouTube, this platform, it's laid the groundwork through interest and opportunity by building a sense of community where relationships and friendships are created. Users go on here to create meaningful media. They social network, they create communities, and they foster, and all of this, it fosters collaboration. And there are so many channels on YouTube. It's literally something for everyone. You can go to channels and watch booktubers or pet tubers or fitness instructors. YouTube holds a variety of media for a variety of people. Users may come to YouTube to watch cat videos or engage in the comment section with like-minded fans of 5-minute crafts. YouTube allows for experimentation as well as expression, especially regarding, again, the creation of personally meaningful media, which is what YouTube's all about, community. In the world of academic research, community-based participatory research places collaboration and collective intelligence at the center of the research process, consciously turning away from the traditional research relationships between participants and researchers. In Canada, a team of researchers sought to explore and understand the understandings of the healthy body and body image in Aboriginal teenage girls in the paper Reflections from a Creative Community-Based Participatory Research Project Exploring Health and Body Image with First Nations Girls. It is not uncommon for First Nations people to suffer an acute variety of health issues due to inequalities built out of social, political, economic, and cultural inequalities rooted in a colonial history. The team, they were aware of these research methodologies that keep First Nations peoples underneath this lens of colonialism. And it was their purpose to engage in decolonizing through enhanced collaboration and participation, which was a way to honor in these Indigenous voices. A key move for researchers was to engage in data collecting methods that allowed the girls to speak for themselves through mediums of art collages, sharing circle surveys, interviews, and interactions on Photo Voice, which is designed for CBPR. Photo Voice is this website that's dedicated to the idea of people representing themselves and sharing their stories and their words through ethical photography. And in fact, this study, it became the first on Photo Voice to explore this relationship between First Nation teen girls living on the reserves and their bodies. The results were positive. The girls enjoyed taking the photos of each other, of the research team, and the scenery as this study took place during the winter. And while this photo is not an exact photo used in the study, it is a similar looking bridge in Canada. Now, they enjoyed sharing their stories on Photo Voice and creating art collages, which they all signed at the end like a yearbook. Community-based participatory research gave researchers this much-needed glimpse into the experiences of First Nations adolescent girls' relationships with health and body image.
Okay, so I will be discussing strategies that public libraries can use based on efforts done by other libraries. So in the article, Building a Participatory Culture, Collaborating with Student Organizations for 21st Century Library Instruction by Johnson, Clapp, Ewing, and Bueller, they examined the efforts made by an academic library to involve students in library instruction, as they noticed that the students wanted to become more active contributors. The participatory culture is embraced when it encourages new students to take part. And by doing that, the students forge new connections, they try new forms of expression, and they also try on different identities. So allowing them to contribute and take part allows them to have a different experience that they wouldn't normally have outside of the library. Typically, when library staff puts in a lot of research and time into planning an event. So when attendance is low, it's declared a failure, and that affects later on whether they continue the program or have similar programs. By allowing students to participate in the program planning, it ensures that the development of programs are relevant to the students and can ensure some attendance. The results from the series of case studies in this article found that in order to establish long-lasting relationships with students in the 21st century, libraries need to form new connections with this target audience to provide the programs that they need. Part of what they can do is form a teen advisory board or teen advisory council. Many libraries are doing this, and it encourages teens to take part and practice collaboration and communication, which is essential for higher education and for careers. This will also help the library move from individually based content, where it is one person planning and guessing at what the audience wants, to a more collaborative based content, where it is a group of people forming the program, where members of the audience are part of that group, so that the population is represented. By involving the teens in the planning of an event, they're increasing the likelihood of success. So increasing the chances that it will be well attended. The teen focus groups should meet in a separate room, not just on the main floor, if possible, where people are walking by and there are multiple distractions. It would add an air of seriousness to meet in a study room or a separate meeting room, just somewhere where it feels like this is being taken seriously and that the library truly wants the voice of the teens. Something else that would help would be a single staff member moderating the meetings to form a bond with the library. It would be beneficial to have it be through one staff member rather than a revolving door of staff members moderating the meetings, where the teens don't know who to expect, who's coming in. By having one member, they can forge a bond, form that connection, and through that person, continue that bond to the library. Next, we'll be looking at U Media Miami, Engaging Youth in Powerful New Ways. This examines the U Media program developed by the Miami-Dade Public Library System. It's a program designed to reach out to high-risk teens in the area and encourage positive social change through expression in technology. They wanted to design the computer space as a place where teens can hang out, geek out, chill out. So where they can come and be free to hang out with their friends, to take part in the latest technologies, or to just relax, to just be themselves. It was also designed to expose these teens to IT and software that they might not be able to access anywhere else. So they have a computer lab loaded with specialty software, Anime Studio, Adobe CS5 Production Premium, Final Cut Pro, a variety of video software, photo software, art, anything that the teens could use to express themselves through the computer. And it's open to teens 14 to 19 in the Miami-Dade County. They also have 5 staff members assigned to assist the teens in the center, teaching them the new skills, teaching them how to use these various programs. And through teaching them, teens are able to earn one of their certificates that they offer in basic Mac skill, music, videography, and basic photography. Once their projects are done, the Miami-Dade Public Library System uses social media to highlight the program and highlight these teens by sharing the projects online. This allows the teens to connect to each other and to the library on social media through these projects. What other libraries can take from this is outreach through social media. Social media is quickly becoming an important and vital outreach, especially with the younger population. Library social media can be more than just retweeting authors or promoting library events. The Young Adult Library Services Association offers recommendations on how to use Instagram to engage in teen culture and with teens. They can do so by posting shelfies, which are book selfies. As you can see on the left, there's a shelfie. I don't remember the title, but the cover is blue, highlighting various blue books. They can also take part in current hashtags such as things I can't resist or unlikely psychic predictions. Librarians can also jump in on the hashtag trend mentioned earlier, the In My Feelings challenge. Libraries can also do unboxing videos showing off the new arrivals, such as on the right-hand side, that just received The Cruel Prince. While social media accounts are free, staff members need to maintain and plan these images, which can take up a lot of time. Staff can enlist the help of teen volunteers to take photos for the library's social media accounts. This can create more opportunities to engage teens in the library's social media.
Okay, so now I would like to take a moment to reference a few examples of successful application of participatory culture in libraries from some recent scholarly literature on the topic. So the first example I'd like to highlight is from a 2018 article by Aaron Hoops called Social Justice Symposium for Teens. So Erin Hoops is a teen librarian who had overheard some of her teen patrons discussing social justice issues such as police brutality, racism, and criminal justice reform after there had been another instance of an all too common officer-involved shooting in the local Philadelphia area. So in response to the passion she saw displayed from her teen patrons, she decided to create an annual day-long social justice symposium for teens for the Free Library of Philadelphia. So the symposium is an interactive platform for teens where they can address social justice issues in a productive and collaborative way. They invited teens to discuss issues of racism, gentrification, and criminal justice reform with prominent authors on the subject, local activists, and community members who held keynote speeches and workshops where the teens could get involved in the discussions and just get a lot of great information on these topics that they're clearly so invested in. So for instance, during the second symposium, there was a workshop which was held by a formerly homeless community member who led a workshop on beating the odds of homelessness. There was also another workshop hosted by a local activist who highlighted the challenges faced by women of color when seeking advanced education. So the first symposium had about 30 participants, and it was a major success. By the second time that they held this annual event, their participation, or their attendance rather, grew to almost double, of about 50 patrons. So the participants gave overwhelmingly positive feedback in their post-event surveys. In the second symposium, afterwards, 96% of the attendees reported that they felt more aware of issues of importance in their community and that they felt more confident about becoming involved. And all participants who went to this second symposium reported that they might or would definitely attend the next year's annual symposium. So this example about the Symposium for Social Justice for Teens is just an excellent real-life application of Jenkins' definition of participatory culture, because it both facilitates civic engagement among teen users, and it also provides informal mentorship for them via prominent authors or local community members or activists. So the next article that I would like to highlight from the recent scholarly literature is a 2016 article by Megha Subramaniam entitled "Designing the Library of the Future for and with Teens." So one innovative technique that the author references in this piece to encourage participation among her teen patrons is a technique called sticky noting. So this process involves teen librarians leaving out pads of Post-it notes and pens by prototypes for their new library technologies that they're hoping to adopt for their department, for their teen department. And so what they do is that they leave these Post-it notes and pens there so that the teens can leave anonymous comments evaluating these technologies and offering suggestions for improvement. This is really just a great way to get direct design input from the teen patrons in an anonymous and non-threatening format. And since these suggestions are given anonymously, this allows teens to be a lot more forthcoming with their suggestions and their comments than they might be if they were actually in a face-to-face meeting with a librarian who's asking for their suggestions. So another tactic referenced in this article that is a great way to get teens involved in designing library programs, events, or evaluating technologies is a process called Mission to Mars. So in this process, the teen librarian would assume the role of a Martian. They go into another room and they ask their teen patrons a bunch of open-ended questions or prompts about ways to improve designs for their programs, events, technologies, or whatever the case may be. And they do this via video conferencing software such as Skype. And then they broadcast that into another laptop in the other room. So the teens, once they start really getting into this discussion and start offering their suggestions, a lot of times the teen librarian will opt to step away from this and will actually log off from their Skype session and will just record what their comments were and then review these comments later to incorporate into their event planning or their the way that they want to improve whatever the technology or ebook platform or whatever the case may be. And so this is, while it may seem a bit silly, this technique of Mission to Mars can be a really fun, lighthearted, and effective way to get your teen patrons involved in design planning for programs, events, technologies, ebook platforms, or whatever your teen department wants evaluated or updated. And both examples from this Subramaniam article, whether sticky noting or the Mission to Mars concept, can serve as excellent applications of what Jenkins refers to as collaborative problem solving in his piece on participatory culture. And so lastly, I would also like to leave you with a few quotes from both of these articles, which I feel perfectly encapsulate what the concept of participatory culture really looks like in a real life teen library setting. So this first quote you see here is from the Hoops article about the Symposium for Social Justice for Teens. And this came from a teen patron who actually attended this second symposium. And he said, if youth are the target audience, it only makes sense if youth get to plan it. He went on to say, I like seeing the other side of a program and having an influence on what we do. And this next quote is from the Subramaniam article. And the author asserted that teen services librarians must acknowledge that teens have their very own interests and desires that deserve valid attention. And she goes on to say that it's really of the utmost importance that these teen librarians bear these interests and desires in the forefront of their mind whenever they're planning any kind of new service or event or whatever the case may be. And with that, I would like to say thank you very much for watching our presentation.